ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकाय विद्याय कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तद्भक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्राप्रजन्तमपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरकातरया जुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतयोतरुणोपोदितविदेदुस्तंसावभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। आनन्दलीलमय विग्रहाय हेमवदिव्यश्चाभिसुन्दराय तस्मै महाप्रेमरसप्रदाय चैतन्याय नमो नमस्ते।
चैतन्यचन्द्राय नमो नमस्ते। चैतन्यचन्द्राय नमो नमस्ते।
श्याम सुन्दर स्कन्दसु स्वरहास मुरली मनोहर राधिकरस्कमम कृपनिधि सुप्रिय चरण किङ्करीं कुरु तवैवस्मि तवैवस्मि नाज। First of all, I offer my sustaining Dandavat Puspanjali, my heart like flowers thousands of times, for the lotus feet of my holy master, my supremely worshipable spiritual Gurudev, Asmutiya Paramarabhata Guru Parapan, Nitya Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Ashtotarasta Sri Rupanuga Acharya Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami. Secondly, I offer my pranam thousands of times at the lotus feet of my Param Gurudev, to Srila Prabhupada, and to all of our Sri Rupanuga Gaudiya Guru Parampara. And finally, I offer my pranam to all the Samud Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, So yesterday in the evening, we began our festival on the subject of Nam Tattva. So for those who did not arrive in time, those who are newly coming this morning, and for everyone who was also there to deliberate what we discussed yesterday, I want to recap and just touch some of the main points. Because we said, Tachin Vamsupatan Vicharna Prabhaktyadi Vachandara. First one should hear. Then what you have heard, one should go and study it and recite it. And then one should do vichara, deeply deliberate on the meaning. Prabhaktyadi Vachandara, and then bhakti will appear. So, yesterday we began by describing how Srimad Bhagavatam is Grantaraj, the king of all scriptures, and how all the fine details of Nam Tattva have been explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. And therefore, by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, gradually, all inauspicious things in our life are removed. What is inauspicious? Nam Aparad, offenses to the holy name. If these are gone, then at once, when one chants the holy name, Krishna praying will flood the heart. Taramadye Sarva Shestra Nama Sankirtan Niraparad Namale Pai Premadan. Mahaprabhu said, of all the angles of bhakti, Harinam Sankirtan is the best. And if someone will simply chant without committing offense, then they obtain the treasure of Krishna prema. Just like we see our Sri Sachinandan Govari, when he received initiation from his guru, he just sat and he began to chant. And very soon he had the darshan of Sri Krishna and became mad, weeping, laughing, crying, singing, dancing, rolling on the ground. Kiba mantra diligo sai, kiba tarbal, japite mantra karle pagal. He came back to his Gurudev and said, "Oh Gurudev, what kind of mantra did you give me and what power is in it?" I began to chant and now I think I've become mad. But his Gurudev, Srila Ishvara Prabhupada, told him, no, you are very fortunate. I am fortunate also to have a disciple like you. Krishna Nama Mahamantra Eito Swabhav Jai Jape Tara Krishna Upajay Bhav. Krishna Nama Mahamantra Eito Swabhav. This is the Swabhav, this is the nature of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Jai Jape, that person who chants Tare Krishna, for him, in Krishna Upajay Bhav, ecstatic emotion will rise in his heart. So it's imperative that one overcomes offenses to the holy name to attain the perfection of life. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, all Nam Tattva has been described, and so many histories, each one addressing different aspects of our relationship with the holy name and removing some offense and helping one adopt the positive attitude required to overcome the offenses to the holy name. So gradually over through the festival we'll be going through different upakhans or histories, didactic histories of Srimad Bhagavatam, and discussing how it relates to our Nam Bhajan. So yesterday we began with the basic ontology of the holy name. What is the nature of Nam? And how Nam appears in this world. So Srila Jiva Goswami Pad describes that on the pretext of describing how the Vedas appear in this world, from the Bij syllable Om, Srimad Bhagavatam is describing to us how Nam, even though Atasi Krishna Namadi Nabhavat Brain Indriyai, the material senses of a living being, they cannot receive, they cannot contact, they cannot perceive in any way Krishna's Nam, Rup, Gun and Leela. But when the living entity surrenders and he's attentive to service, Sevan Mukhi Jivado Swayam Eva Spuratada, then just as the material energy was avidya vritti, was in control of his pran, in control of his mind, and creating vikalpa, non-correlated thought constructs, all types of illusory understandings of reality. So similarly, when a person repeats the mantra, then Swarup Shakti comes and takes over the pran, the manas and the buddhi of the living entity, and that Swarup Shakti is Swayam Prakash, self-manifesting, and begins to disclose the nature of Krishna's beautiful Swarup and his qualities and associates, his holy Dham, Vrindavan, and all of his pastimes. So, yesterday we discussed how Parikshit Maharaj posed this question: how can the Vedas, through words, which describe, all words are connected to the meaning of something mundane, how can they describe the Supreme Lord? To which Shukadeva Goswami replied, Bodendriya Mana Pranam Janan Asitat Prabhu Matratam Cha Bhavatam Cha Kalpane Atmane Kalpanaya Cha. Meaning that this human form of life has mind, intelligence, pran, senses, and they have different levels of the purpose, such as dharma, following religious principles, artha, acquiring wealth, calm, fulfilling desires, and finally mukti. So, this mukti is of two types, impersonal and personal. In order to attain any type of mukti, one needs some kripa, some mercy from Bhakti Devi. But especially to attain personal liberation of realizing one's transcendental form and serving Sri Krishna eternally in the Loka Vrindavan, then one needs the support of Swarup Shakti. So, Shukadeva Goswami, in his reply, he explained how your mind, your pran, your intelligence and your senses are actually designed by God specifically for this purpose. So don't think, how can anyone know God? That's impossible. No. God has made you to know Him. And He's given you all the instruments by which He can be known and realized. If those instruments, your mind and senses, are used in the appropriate way. So, by poetry, by Vyanjan Vritti, by implication, Shukadeva Goswami was saying, oh, you may say it's impossible to see God or meet God or describe God, but look, if you didn't have eyes, then it would be impossible to speak about color. So just as God has given you an instrument by which you can see color and shape, if you did not have ears, then you would not be able to describe sound or music or experience it. So just as God has given you senses that can perform a particular function, without which you would know nothing about, that realm would be beyond your experience. So similarly, He has made your senses in such a way that they can function in relation to transcendence. And how is that? By associating with pure Vaishnavas, surrendering and serving Sri Guru, and receiving Shabda Brahma, transcendental sound from Sri Guru. Upon receiving this sound, one should chant. And then that sound in the form of Aprakrita Pran will rise up and take control of your mind, your intelligence and your senses. And then your consciousness will be able to function in relation to the divine transcendental world, which was hitherto completely inaccessible. So then, after that, we discussed a very important verse, the first verse of the prayers of the Vedas personified. Jaya 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 Jam Ajita Dosha Gribita Gunam Tamasiya Datmana Samavirura Samasta Bhagaha Agajagadokasam Akila Shatya Babura Kakti Kwachijajayatmana Chacharatonu Jare Nigamaha. How the Vedas wake up Supreme Lord before creation. What is the significance of that? Let's see who was paying attention yesterday. What is the significance of the Vedas waking up the Supreme Lord in the morning?
Well, there's nothing else. There's no other form, no other people, no other material distractions.
So, that means what?
That they are eternal.
That the Vedas are eternal and transcendental. And the Vedas have two forms. What were the two forms of the Vedas? Yes, Shabdarup and Devarup. Forms of Devas, their angelic, spiritual, personal bodies, and also their Shabda form, sound form. Now, how did they try to wake up the Supreme Lord? Who remembers?
Serenading.
That's the. But what they didn't sing anything. What did they sing?
They said that Maya, forget the Maya.
That comes. They called his name Ajit. Ajit. So the significance is that the name of God is also eternal, also transcendental, because it existed before the creation. And that the name of God, why is it that the name of God, when someone calls the name of God, that the Supreme Lord's attention goes towards that person? Why?
He identifies with his name.
He identifies with his name. He is non-different from his name. What was the word? Do you remember the technical term? Swarup Bhut. Swarup Bhut. That means his name is a part of his divine Swarup. Just as his fingers, his toes, his Kaustubha mani, his jewel, his earrings, they're all Swarup Bhut. They're all aspects of his own Swarup. So Nam is an aspect of his own Swarup. And because he's indivisible, if you take a cake and you cut it, each part is smaller and less than the whole. But that which is indivisible, Akhanda, Advai, a non-dual, indivisible reality, any part of it is the complete whole. So the name of Krishna, and Krishna himself, it's not just the name of some part, aspect of Krishna. It's completely non-different from Krishna. And whatever powers are there in Krishna is fully named there in these two syllables, Krishna. So this is the significance. So they're waking up the Lord, and Rajesh, as he very nicely pointed out, they said, Jahyajam, be victorious and defeat Maya. Dosha Grabita Gunam, because your divine Swarup makes even the qualities, the good virtues of Maya into faults. Do you know, there was a person about 2,000 years ago, he said that all of your good deeds are like dirty rags before the eyes of the Lord. Who was that? Yes, Lord Jesus Christ. What does it mean? Here, dosha gribita gunam. The meaning is that Maya has vidyavriti, the avidyavriti that puts you in ignorance, and vidyavriti also, that by which ignorance goes away, and you can realize you have the Deya Atma Vivek, discrimination between the body and the soul. So the vidyavriti of Maya helps you discriminate between yourself and the coverings in the form of the material mind and body. So that's good, right? Well, relatively. But only discriminate, I am not this body, then you may be inclined towards an impersonal type of liberation. Because those sattva gun can help you do neti. I am not this earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, ego. Reject the material things. It does not reveal any positive, spiritual, variegated beauty. And therefore, this vidyavriti of Maya should also be gone. Vidya and avidya, everything. But you should know that you have to pass through. You have to rise up from tamagun, rajagun, to sattva gun, and then ascend to vishuddha sattva, to transcendence. So don't think that you won't have to go through and at least become sattvic in one's behavior before the attainment of the vishuddha sattva. Tadora justamo bhavas kamalabha dhyasti cheta eta anavidam stitam sattve prasiddhati. In Sutta Goswami Pad, he says that by hearing Harikatha, the effects of tamagun, ignorance, go away, the effects of rajagun, the mode of passion, go away. One comes to sattva, and then gradually one's consciousness becomes fixed in vishuddha sattva, the pure swarup of Sri Krishna. So, Jahyajam, Ajita, Dosha Grabita Gunam. One point we didn't mention yesterday, which is very interesting. The Vedas say, Agajagadokasham Akila Shattavabodhakatte. Oh my Lord, you are the one who gives life and infuses all the senses of every living entity. So wherever you look in the world, whatever is happening, how can a bird fly? How can a butterfly? How how can a bumblebee fly? How can the sun move? How can a child be born? How, all of these are all the mystic potency of the Supreme Lord. Everything is God's Shakti. Without a Shakti, no one can do anything at all. But Akila Shakti, you also have internal potency by which your external potency is removed and all the living entities become awakened to pure devotion. So this is what the Vedas are praying for. Srishti Lila, the creation pastime of God. His loving pastimes are going on always in Goloka Vrindavan, but this world is also Srishti Lila, the creation pastime of God. And what is the nature of this? Once Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quoted this verse, Jaya 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 Jam Ajita Tosha Grabhita Guna. Do you remember when? Who has read Chaitanya Charitamrita? Has anyone here studied Chaitanya Charitamrita? Where does Mahaprabhu quote this verse? Once, his very dear associate, named Vasudeva Datta, came to him weeping. And crying, he said, "Oh my Lord, all the living entities in this world are suffering. Please, I cannot tolerate their suffering. Give all the karmas, good and bad, of all the living entities to me, and let me taste all of their karmas and let them be free." Have you heard such a prayer before? Who else prayed in this way? Prahlad Maharaj prayed to Lord Nrsimhadeva. So Vasudeva Datta is actually the incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj in Gaura-lila. So his same bhav is there. But this time he's not praying to Lord Nrsimhadeva, he's praying to the origin. It is of course Lord Nrsimhadeva, Gaura Hari. Gaura Hari means Gaura who's like a lion. So it is the same Lord Nrsimhadeva, but he's fully manifest. Lord Nrsimhadeva is the partial, means the partial manifestation of Supreme Lord. This is the same Lord but fully manifest. Just like there's only one moon, but sometimes the moon is only half moon, sometimes full moon. So now it's the full moon, Gaur Chandra, is before him, and he's praying in the same way. So when Vasudeva Datta prayed in this way to Mahaprabhu, then Mahaprabhu quoted this verse, Jaya 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 Jam. That don't you worry. Because you are full of compassion for all the living entities. And if you desire the good fortune of anyone, then just by your desiring their good fortune, that person becomes a Vaishnava. So because you desire the good fortune of the whole universe, everyone will become a Vaishnava. And then he quoted this verse, indicating that before the creation, the Vedas offered prayers to the Supreme Lord to wake him up and prayed, may you manifest your external potency, and then may you manifest your internal potency within the external potency and deliver everyone. So Mahaprabhu spoke this very verse to Vasudeva to reassure him that everyone will become a pure devotee, be liberated and attain Krishna Prem. Go Premanande! So don't become discouraged, don't become sad, seeing the condition, difficult condition of the world. In early Christianity, for the first 500 years of Christianity, following the early patriarch, Origen of Alexandria, Christians believed in an aspect of theology called the Great Restoration. And that means that one day God will deliver it's not that some people will go to hell and they'll suffer in hell forever. But one day God will deliver everyone from hell. Even the door is open for Lucifer himself, for Satan himself. That one day he can change his ways and be restored. That's called the philosophy, the theology of the Great Restoration. Christianity was like that for the first 500 years. And until that was anathemized. And so, but our Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught to Vasudeva the great restoration.
Jai.
That all those who are now in a corrupt material state and suffering, one day by the mercy of the Lord, they'll be delivered. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has prayed, Ki jani ki bole tomar dhamite hoinu sharanagata tumi dayamaya patitu pavana patita taranirata patita taranirata. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is weeping and praying, Oh my Lord, ki jani ki bale tomara dhamate. By what strength or by what knowledge of my own did I come to your lotus feet? Nothing. I had no knowledge and no strength. Then how is it that I have arrived at your lotus feet? Only one thing. Tumi Dayamaya. You are Dayamoy, full of compassion. Patita Pavan, you are the deliverer of the fallen. Patita Tarnirata. And your pastime in this world is to deliver all the corrupt souls and make the great restoration. Bring them to their perfect, pristine purity as your eternal servants. So this pastime goes on. The Shakti, the internal potency of the Supreme Lord, appears in this world in a vehicle. And that vehicle is Sri Guru. Shuddha Vaishnavas. They are the vehicle of the mercy Shakti of the Lord, by which the Supreme Lord delivers everyone. So then, we began to discuss Shabda Brahma and present many verses from throughout Srimad Bhagavatam. From 4th canto, from 6th canto, from 10th canto, from 11th canto, from the 12th canto. Everywhere. Param Brahma Shabda Brahma Mamo Ve Shashvati Tanu. Supreme Lord said, I have two forms. This is in 6th canto. I have two forms. My own personal Swarup and my form Parabrahma and as Shabda Brahma, also as sound. In the 10th canto, Krishna said, Mayopa Brahmita Bhumna Brahmanananta Shaktina Bhuteshu Goshurupena Visheshu Mega Lakshita. In a very subtle form, like the thread, the tantu, the fibers within a lotus, I am present as Nada Brahma. Within the heart of, I've put this Nad Brahma in the heart of every living. They can't hear it because they are bahimukh. They are distracted. They are attracted to the external energy. But it is there. And then in the 11th canto, so 12th canto also, there are many verses. So among them, Tatobut Tri Ridankaro. The characteristics, 3 characteristics, A, U, M. And gradually, by sport, that means by making a sporty self-revelation within the heart, that sound revealed his form as Brahman, Paramatma, and then Bhagavan. Sarva Veda Upanishad Mantra Bija Sanatana. This is the secret of all mantras. So, sound shows its material face. When they hear ordinary people speaking, it's mundane talk. And even when they hear a Vaishnava speaking, if a person is not surrendered, if a person has not given up worldly desires, then their mind will obstruct the reception of Shabda Brahma, and even the words of the pure devotee will take a material face, and they will misunderstand what he's saying. Therefore, Guru Pada Shrai, taking shelter of the spiritual master, is essential. And Vishrambena Guru Seva, with great humility and with natural affection, serving the spiritual master. In this way, because one cannot become free from desire. Either you have your desires coming out of the false ego, or the soul can attune his desire with the desire of Gurudev by following his instructions. And Gurudev's desire is attuned with Krishna's desire. So, if A equals B, and C equals B, then A equals C. If your desire is attuned with Gurudev's desire, and Gurudev's desire is attuned with Krishna's desire, then your desire is now automatically attuned with Krishna's desire. So you cannot become free from desire, only we can follow the impetus of our material samskars, or we can attune our desire to Krishna's desire. This is all. So our consciousness has aboutness. It's always about something. It's always directed towards something. So it's either directed to Maya or to Krishna. So when the living entity directs his desire towards Krishna fully, then when he listens to Harikatha, then a samskar takes place. You know what samskar is next for your baby? What's the next samskar? This morning we had the Anaprashna sanskar. And then what's the next sanskar? The next sanskar is Karna Bhed sanskar. Ear piercing sanskar. So this ear piercing, the ear piercing of the child, this is metaphorical. You see, everything in the material world, this is just the vocabulary of the spiritual world and the spiritual activities. Just like in a dictionary, it's full of words, but not the real thing. Just symbolic token of the real thing. So in the same way, everything in this world is like a dictionary of the spiritual world. This is not the real thing. That is not the real eternal sky, real eternal kalpavriksha trees. But the only way that you know that you can conceive of something like a kalpavriksha tree, the wish-fulfilling trees of the spiritual world, is because you're looking at the dictionary here, and all the symbols are there. The vocabulary is given by God in this world. So the Karna Bhed Sanskar actually symbolizes the piercing of the material covering of the soul. Your soul is covered by the subtle gross body and the subtle body and senses. But when a disciple surrenders to Sri Guru and attunes his desire with the desire of Guru through seva, through service, then when Gurudev speaks, that is the Karna Bhed Sanskar, the piercing of the ear. That means that the Shabda Brahma pierces the material covering and touches the soul. And at that time, because the transcendence is complete, when the Shabda Brahma touches the soul and he perceives that Shabda Brahma, it reveals the meaning of all things. It reveals the meaning of all words. It reveals the meaning of all sounds. And that Shabda Brahma is now in the ear of that soul forever. In other words, it awakens Krishna consciousness. When the Shabda Brahma pierces the ear in the Karna Bhed Sanskar, then that sound is so powerful, it completely cleaves the soul from his identification with the material world and reveals all things. Now the channel is open to his Guru, his Param Guru, his Paramesti Guru, his Paratpara Guru, his Paramparat Guru, all the way up to Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma's body is made of Shabda Brahma. So when the ear is pierced, then Maya is cut away. And the divine meaning of all sounds becomes realized. And that devotee now becomes connected with the channel, whole parampara. He becomes acquainted with his Adi Guru, Lord Brahma. Don't think that when Sri Guru is speaking about Lord Brahma, he's talking about some legendary, mythical, four-headed alien from a book. Sri Guru knows Brahma personally. Otherwise he's not in Guru Parampara. So the Shabda Brahma comes down from Supreme Lord, from the flute of Krishna into the ear of Brahma, and then through Parampara to Guru today. And we surrender, we serve, we hear, and we are praying that the Karna Bhed Sanskar will take place, and that is actual Diksha. Divyam Jnanam Yato Dadyat. The transmission of Divya Gyan, transcendental knowledge of your eternal relationship and the revelation of the Swarup of Sri Krishna. When the Shabda Brahma pierces the ear, then the divine meaning of all sound is revealed. And so then the devotee hears, everyone is talking about Krishna. Every word means Krishna. In the Vedanta Sutra, Chara Chara Vyapasrayas Tatsat Vyapadesho Bhaktas Tadbhava Bhavitvat. It is said that all moving and non-moving living entities, their basis, their form, everything, the Supreme Lord is pervading them. Every creature, every object. And therefore, every word is actually a name of God, primarily. And secondarily, what you think of it, what the word means in a conventional sense. But Vyapadesho Bhaktas Tadbhava Bhavitvat, that will be realized in the future when your sadhana is mature. So we see that in the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When he came to Ishvara Puripad and received mantra, and the Karna Bhed Sanskar took place, then he thought, I've gone mad. He was seeing Krishna everywhere. When he returned to Navadvip and was requested by Gangadas Pandit, his Sanskrit teacher, his guru, now you should resume teaching in the toll of the Mukunja and Sanjay. Sanjay Mukunda. In his house, Mahaprabhu had his own school. So Mahaprabhu came there and sat down with his students. And he was supposed to teach them Vyakaranam, Sanskrit grammar. But when the students opened their books, how do you open your books in the morning if you're studying Sanskrit with Nimai Pandit? You have to know this. Because we don't only get a Swarup in Krishna Lila, we get a Swarup as a Brahmin boy in Navadvip as well. Simultaneously. So the students took their books, and all together they open, and as they open their books, they all say, Hari! Everyone, open your books. Hari! And when Mahaprabhu heard the name of Hari, he went into samadhi in a trance. They were asking him questions. What is the meaning of verbal root? Dhatu. And Mahaprabhu explained Krishna. What is the meaning of nouns, verbs, adjectives? What is the meaning of all the cases? Nominative, accusative, instrumental, dative, ablative, locative, vocative? And Mahaprabhu was explaining everything. It's Krishna. Why? Because once the Karna Bhed Sanskar has taken place and the Shabda Brahma has gone into the ear, then meaning is one. Krishna. Understand what Vikalpa means? Vikalpa means separate imagination. Our mind is imagining that there are many, many things to talk about. Our mind is imagining that the world is so many disparate objects, all randomly interacting with each other. But When the Shabda Brahma goes into the ear, then reality is integrated. It is the Advaya Gyan Tattva, the non-dual absolute truth. And there's only one subject. And all words indicate that one subject, Sri Krishna. And so Mahaprabhu was speaking in this way. Gradually he came out from his trance. He asked his students, "Did you understand what I said?" He said, "No, we couldn't understand anything. You didn't tell us what was in the syllabus." Mahaprabhu said, "I'm sorry, I can't teach you this syllabus anymore. You have to go and find another teacher." But they were so attached to him, they began to cry. So we don't want another teacher. We just want to learn from you. So even if you don't teach us the syllabus, whatever you want to teach us, we'll learn that. Then Mahaprabhu said, "All right, clap your hands." Hare Hare Namo Krishna Yadavaya Namaha.
Hare Hare Rama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha.
Hare Hare Namo Krishna Yadavaya Namaha.
Hare Hare Rama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha.
Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan.
Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan.
And in this way, our Nilai Pandit began Harinam Sankirtan movement. With these two lines. Hare Hare Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Then Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan. The significance is this. In the first line, Haraye means unto Hari Namaha. Yadavaya Yadavaya, Keshavaya is in the dative case. Unto Keshav, unto Yadav. It indicates one must surrender to God in one particular relationship. Be established in Sambandha Gyan, one fixed Sambandha. Not that you are worshipping some God who has thousands and thousands of forms. Like Dasavatars. Many deities. Many forms of God. You have to be related with one. In Shantarasa, then one can say, oh, God has millions of forms and they're all wonderful. In Shantarasa. But Shantarasa is characterized by mamata gandhaheen, the absence of possessiveness. So, in order just to go to Dasarasa, or to speak of Madhurya Rasa, there has to be mamata, possessiveness, for one. Like Hanuman. Srinate, Janiknate, Abeda, Paramatma. He said, I know that Krishna and Lord Ram, they are the same, they are Abed, they are non-different. Tatapi mama sarvasya Rama kamalalocha, but I only love Lord Ram. He is my life and soul, he is my everything. So Hanuman, he has dasya bhav. It's characterized by mamata, possessiveness. So if you don't fix your mind on one form of God and one relationship, then you cannot even have dasya bhav, the mood of a servant. So my Gurudev, though in his pastimes in this world, it seems like his English was not perfect, but actually it was so more than perfect. He said, don't be minus. Now, in a dictionary, minus doesn't exist. Minus. He just could have invented that. Minus. Possessiveness. You are mine. And the English word minus means without. So God said, don't be minus. Everything that you do should be saturated with possessiveness. This is my Gurudev's mission. My Gurudev's teaching. My Gurudev's temple. Kartals, Mridanga, deity, everything with possessiveness. And my Gurudev is a servant of my Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and my Nityananda Prabhu. who are distributing the holy names to attain love for my Radha and Krishna. And Radhika is my Swamini. She is my mistress. And I will serve her in the gun of my Lalita, under the guidance of my Rupa Manjari. My. Without minus, without possessiveness, love will not flow. If there are so many children playing, then a parent will look and see. And if one of the child becomes covered in something, mud or anything, they'll come and get that child and clean them. They'll not go and get the other children and clean them. Why? This child is mine. So as soon as there's the minus, then the service flows. If there's no possessiveness, there's not a natural flow of service. Then service becomes a chore. It becomes a formality and a ritual and a duty. So in Braja, no one loves Krishna as a chore or a formality or a ritual. Well, what time? Oh, it's time to serve Krishna again. Like a job, clocking in 9 to 5. This is not bhakti. So possessiveness. So when the Shabda Brahma enters the ear and reveals the Swarup of your Ishtadev, then the service is natural. So Mahaprabhu, when he started his Nam Sankirtan, this is what we're discussing, first, Keshavaya Namaha, surrender to one form of God. And then when one is established in Sambandha, a relationship, that relationship is established by the Diksha Mantra. Then one calls the holy name, but calling the name saturated with that relationship. So therefore the next line Mahaprabhu sang was Gopal, Govinda, Ram, Sri Madhusudam. All of these names are in the vocative case. So in the morning we're sitting and we remember Gayatri Mantras, and then with the same absorption, exactly the same surrender and absorption that we have to our Gopal mantra, then we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Sometimes devotees make a distinction. When I'm chanting japa, then I should, when I'm remembering Gayatri, I should sit very peacefully and not move and be fully concentrated. But when I'm chanting japa, then I can look here and there and check my emails and be distracted. No, with the same focus, complete focus, shutting out everything that we do when we remember Gayatri mantras, one should then, with that same Sambandha Gyan, call the name of Krishna. So when Kirtan is performed with Sambandha Gyan, it's called Sankirtan. Kirtan with Sambandha Gyan is Sankirtan. So we discussed yesterday how in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 12th canto it said that the Nad Brahma will not manifest until Shukta Shotre, at the time when the senses have become dissolved, just like in deep sleep. So when we are chanting japa, one should not let the senses go out. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said in Sri Harinam Chintamani, if you're distracted, then block your ears and put a cloth over your eyes. Just physically stop your senses from that being distracted. And then try to hear Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And then, gradually, but this is a very interesting thing. We're chanting, we're hearing, and we want to hear the actual name of Krishna, Shuddhanam, not an external vibration. In Prema Vivarta, Jagannananda Pandit says, Asat Sangha Bhai Krishna Nama Nahiyai, Namakshar Bahirai, Bhati Nama Kabunai. without associating with sadhus, pure devotees, then a person cannot chant the name, because the external sound of the syllables is not Krishna's pure name. So by associating with Vaishnavas, hearing from them, gradually we come to realize, oh, I was not actually chanting the holy name, but I want to chant the holy name. Like Rupa Goswami said, Narad Vinod's Jivanas Sudhirmini Ryasa Madhuripura Tum Krishna Nama Kamas Parame Rasaina Rasane Sada. O Nam Prabhu, you who give life to the Veena of Narad. Narad doesn't even have to play his Veena. He just sings Radharaman, and as the name of Radharaman descends on his tongue, his Veena comes alive and just starts playing itself. Narad Vinod's Jivana Sudurmi Niryas Madhuripura. You are like the crest of a wave in the ocean of sweetness. Tvam Krishna Nama Kamaspura. Oh Nam Prabhu, please fulfill my desire. What do you want? Rasaina Rasane Sada. Kindly manifest yourself on my tongue along with Prema Rasa. This is the last verse of Namastak, Sri Krishna Namastakam of Rupa Goswami. This is what we want. So rather than sitting there and thinking, Hare Krishna, I'm chanting Hare Krishna, I've done this before. It's taking a long time. When's breakfast? But rather one should think, I've never chanted ever. When will that day come? Kalbehabe bolo sedinayama aparada guchi shudaname ruchi kripa bale tave hridaye sancha kalbehabe bolo sedinayama. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when will that day come? When I will overcome the aparads, the offenses. And by your mercy, O Nam Prabhu, you will sanchar. Sanchar means to be infused. Kripa bale kabe hridaye sanchar. That means in my chitta, you will be infused, you will become one, enter into my pran, manas and buddhi, and completely take over everything. And appear and drown me in the nectar of the Vrindavan Lila. So, this is actual chanting of Harinam. So yesterday we were discussing those words. Shukta Shrotre Chashunyadrik. When the senses are withdrawn from the external world, only then is it possible that sound begins to manifest. And Lord in the heart hears it and wakes you up. Jeev Chago, Gaura Chandra Bole. Mahaprabhu said, wake up, wake up. I have brought you this Mahamantra, it is a medicine to destroy illusion. And then Shuddhanam begins to appear. And all Maya, all Vikalpa, all the worldly perceptions and conceptions are all destroyed by this medicine of actually the Mahamantra. So then, we discussed how faith is of two types depending on our association. If we associate with the devotee in Raga Marg or Vaidhi Marg, then we'll have a corresponding type of faith. If we hear from a person in Vaidhi Marg, then we'll also take up the path of Vaidhi Bhakti. And the heart will be always in a relationship of Aishwarya, awareness of Krishna's Godhood, his Bhagavata. But if we'll associate with a Vaishnava in the Raga Marg, then we'll have faith in Krishna's sweetness. We'll be impelled to hear, chant and remember Not because I am a conditioned soul in this world and I am rotating in the endless chain of birth and death, and it's my duty to serve God, and if I don't do it, I'll never get out. But rather, being all activities initiated by an eagerness to relish the sweetness of the love that Krishna's associates have for him. That lobe, that greed will begin to awaken. And it will gradually mature and mature until we come to a stage like Raghunath Das Goswami. So yesterday we were introducing already, because today is the appearance day of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. We'll speak about him in the evening. And we discussed yesterday how one should serve Guru with great intimacy and natural affection. Otherwise, one will not catch the subtleties of the bhavs of Braja. Just as though Radhika is the shelter of all gopis, when Rati Manjari is taking her through the forest at night to meet with Krishna, Radhika is taking shelter of Rati Manjari. So in the same way, if a person serves their Guru in such a way that Guru feels, this is not my disciple, he is my prana. And Guru gives the chance for the intimate exchange of love, dadati pratikranati guyamati prachiti. Bhunte bhojayate chava sadvida pratilakshana. And Guru even has the pastime of becoming dependent upon the disciple. Then, that mood of very intimate service to Radhika, gradually it will come in the heart. So this is an overview of yesterday's class, from the very initial ontology of the holy name, what is Shabda Brahma, how it appears in this world, and how we want to chant, but not the Vaikuntha Naam, the Braja Prem Naam. Gaura Premanande.
Hari Bo.
Try to note all these points in your heart, these jewels, and keep them, treasure them forever. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
If you have a question, please raise your hand and then I'll see how many people have questions.
Speak loudly.
Yes, your name?
My name is Krishna Sneha.
Krishna Sneha. Oh, how beautiful.
My question is about the relationship with Guru.
Oh, just wait, because I cannot stop it, it's just coming. Do you know what Sneha means?
Yeah.
Huh? What does Sneha mean?
Affection.
Affection. Sneha means greasy. Yes, but it means greasy. Huh? Just like ghee. If you pick up some ghee in your hand, then what happens? It's warm. And it's soft and it's greasy and it soaks in. Yeah? So sneha is like that. Snigdha, greasy. And it means, you see, it is said that conditioned souls have 18 defects. They're hungry, angry, lusty. They become tired. So 18. And it is said that all these defects are also in Krishna, in Vrindavan. He becomes hungry, he becomes tired. Except for one. There's one of the 18 defects is not in him. It's called Ruksha Rasata. Ruksha Rasata. It means, Ruksha means rough. That the rasa is rough. You know, sometimes you're interacting with a person, they're really prickly. Prickly person, you know. So there's no smoothness in the interaction, in the relation. It's kind of, has a lot of sharp edges. So that's a ruksha rasa. So in this world, relationships are like that, generally. Mainly, like 99.99999% of the time. But in the spiritual world, that defect is not in God. All the defects are in Krishna. He's He's a cheat, he's lusty, he's angry, he's thirsty. He has all defects that we have, except for one. Not ruksha rasata. It's not pretty. The interactions that are smooth and greasy like ghee. So this is sneha, Krishna sneha. The interactions are unimpeded, very smooth and natural and sweet, without any roughness or obstruction. So you have such a beautiful name, Krishna Sneha Dasi.
Nice.
I have a nickname too by my dictionary.
Yes.
He calls me Krishna Oil.
Oil. There you are, you see. Oil. Oil is greasy. So, and you Guru Maharaj?
Hridayananda.
My very dear and close friend for many years. Yes. So yes, your question.
So my question is about Guru. So I know you spoke at length about it, but if Krishna is as Paramatma in every living entity's heart, why the need of Guru? Like, wouldn't, given that there's the danger of you associating someone who poses as a bona fide Guru but is not actually, sincere. let's say.
Yes.
But yeah, so why wouldn't Krishna just give each one of us the opportunity to connect with him directly according to our own sincerity?
First of all, you should know, in Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said, Jive Shakshat Nahi Tati Guru Chaita Rupe Shiksha Guru Hoi Krishna Mahanta Swarupe. That because the conditioned soul cannot perceive the Chaitya Guru, Paramatma in the heart, therefore he comes outside in the form of Mahanta Guru. Shiksha Guru Hoi Krishna Mahanta Swarup. So it is not that the Swarupa of Guru is not Krishna. Sakshat Haritvena Samasta Shastre. Guru Krishna Rupa Hiya Shastra Pramay. Guru is one form of Krishna. But he's not a form of Krishna who lifts Govardhan hill or plays a flute or dances on the head of Kali. It's a special form of Krishna which gives kripa, mercy. So if someone is sincere, then they will meet with bona fide Guru Krishna, who is a form of Krishna and will help them. So remember that yesterday we discussed this very important verse, Matratam cha bhavatam cha atmane kalpanaya cha. That when we're in a state of ignorance, our senses, mind and intelligence only function in relation to the gunas. So Paramatma is nirguna. So none of our faculties function in relation to transcendence in our conditioned state. If a person somehow or other surrenders, it doesn't have a guru, but wants to surrender to God. Oh God, I am yours. And tries to surrender himself. It's a hypothetical. It's because it's very difficult. Without sadhu sangha, it's not going to happen. But hypothetically, if a person would just call God and try to surrender to Him, they can be liberated and go to the lower level of Vaikuntha, where there is all opulence. They can get mukti. It's possible. Srila Sanatana Goswami Padi in Brihad Bhaktamrita says that if you accept that the blade of grass is God, you have what's called Bhagavad Buddhi. Bhagavad Buddhi, the conception, here is God. And if you worship, do puja to a blade of grass. Jayatrina Deva, Jayatrina Deva. The grass incarnation of God. You get siddhi, you get liberation. Yeah? So what you're saying is, well, why can't a person just sincerely just surrender to God? Why does he need a guru? And the answer is no, he doesn't. You can be liberated by accepting something as God and worshipping that with all your heart and soul. And you can get mukti. But you cannot get Shuddha Bhakti. Pure Bhakti. So Jiva Goswami Pad said, a person by surrender, even without a guru, can get mukti, liberation. But if a soul is what is called Vaishishya Lipsu. Lipsu means one who desires. And Vaishishya means something particular, something special. Like, I would really like to serve Narayan, like Narad Muni serves Lord Narayan. Or I would really like to serve Lord Ramachandra, like Hanuman serves Lord Ramachandra. Or I would love to serve Krishna in Dwarka, like Satyabhama and Rukmini. Or I would love to serve Krishna in Vrindavan, like Yashoda. Or like Gopis. So if you are Vaishishya Lipsu, then Guru is needed. Because Guru will give mantra, and through the medium of that mantra, then he will awaken one particular sambandha, and you will go there. It's just like a person, let's say there's a person in Europe. So they think, okay, I'm in Spain. If I just get in a boat and go kind of in the western direction, I'll arrive somewhere in America. It's around. So America is a big place, there are many destinations. So the spiritual sky, or God, is a big place. So if you just surrender to God without any clear idea where you're going, then you cannot attain Vaishishya, a special destination. So Sri Guru, through his association and through mantra, awakens a particular bhav, particular mood, that we can attain a specific, in that vast spiritual sky, we can attain a specific destination in a specific mood of love. So surrender is also of two types. Atmanivedana. Atmanivedana can be bhav vishisht and bhav vihin. Surrender without a particular mood, and surrender with a particular mood. So if we want to attain a specific destination, especially that destination that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to give only once in 8,400,000,000 years, Supreme Lord Sri Krishna appears in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give Radha Dasyam, the service of Srimati Radhika, which is incomparably glorious and sweet. If someone wants that, then Guru is necessary. You cannot just have a random spiritual life. One has to, one's conception and one's sadhana has to be refined and pointed, targeted towards that destination. So that's why perhaps you have read Ramananda Samvad, the conversation between Ramananda Rai and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Madhya Lila, chapter 8 of Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's especially on this subject. Mahaprabhu has received Diksha. But even after receiving Diksha, it was not enough to fulfill his desire of realizing fully Radhika's bhav. So he traveled to South India, and there he took shelter of Shiksha Guru, Ramananda Rai, and asked Ramananda Rai, what is the goal of life, the sadhya? So then Ramananda Rai instructed him gradually, systematically, step by step, up to the highest sadhya, which for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha Bhav. He's trying to realize that I am Radharani, that Abhiman, to relish his own sweetness through the eyes of Radharani. So then Ramananda Rai described the glories of Radhika's love, the whole swarupa of Radha. He described Radhika's hair, Radhika's ornaments, Radhika's cloth, how they're all manifestation of her bhav. And when he had come to the highest point, Prem Vilas Vivarta, Na so ramana na hama ramani dui mana manubhava peshla jani. Paila hiragana yanabanga bela anudina barla avadina gala. When Ramananda Rai had described this, then Mahaprabhu was very satisfied. But then he said, Sadhya vastu sadhan bina keho nahi pai, kripa kar kaharai pabra upai. O Ramananda Rai, without practicing the correct sadhana, he cannot attain his sadhya. So once you know a specific goal, now our daily practices have to be refined so that they point exactly towards that goal. And every step that we take, every activity, every thought, every breath that we do is drawing us closer to that one specific goal. So then, Ramananda Rai, after describing the sadhya, on Mahaprabhu's request, Mahaprabhu requested him, now describe how to refine my sadhana that it's exactly to attain that goal. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, apani karimo bhakta bhava angikari apani chari bhakti shikamu subari. I will appear in this world to teach everyone devotional service by my own example. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself is showing us what we need to do. First, we have to take shelter of Diksha Guru and receive mantra and begin to practice. After some time, it may be that our Diksha Guru becomes Shiksha Guru. Or Sri Krishna appears in another form as Shiksha Guru and guides us. It is said that it's like there are 2 feet in the sky. Diksha Guru takes those feet and plants them in the dust of Vrindavan. Now you're there. Then Shiksha Guru teaches you how to walk when you get there. So Mahaprabhu, his relationship was already established by Ishvara Puripad, but he had not fully realized the path that he was aspiring for, so he heard from Ramananda Rai. So we follow his example. Mahaprabhu has appeared in this world and his lila is exactly perfect to show us how to attain perfection in our spiritual life. And who else has a question? Yes, not towards Guru or to Krishna. Yes, question? Yes, I do that.
Hare Krishna, Nanda. Thank you so much for the devotees. If we were to describe Nam Tattva to completely new people who are unfamiliar with Bhakti in like 5 minutes, how would you do that?
She asked, if we were deputed with the task of explaining Nam Tattva to a totally new person in 5 minutes, then what should we say? You know, there are 4 methods of persuasion. Logos, ethos, pathos and kairos in Greek philosophy. So different people respond to different approaches. You see? If someone is very intellectual, they respond to logos, logical argument. If someone is very emotional, then they respond to pathos, an appeal to their heart. If someone is more ethically inclined, they are moved by a sense of duty, ethos. And kairos means appeal to time. That means, just like someone says, oh, there's a special offer today, 50% off, but only today. And then that persuades the person, oh, I have to purchase this today, I can't wait till tomorrow. So that's persuasion using time. So the Shastra uses all of these things. Jivana anitya janahasa tahina navitta vipadabha. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, oh, this human form of life is so full of problems and it's temporary, it will be over in a moment. And if you don't worship the son of your shoulder now, at the last moment of your life, you'll be completely ashamed. Yeah? This is kairos, persuasion by, your time is running out. Chant now. So we see that generally people today, they're more logically inclined and they need some logical explanation. So, actually right now I'm writing a book. It's called Sriyuta Chutta Siddhantaha. It means the inerrant dialectic, a method of logic, reason and argument leading to the conclusion, which is incapable of being wrong. Because any challenge that you make to it at any step, any attempt to deny it only confirms it even more. And it's very short, it's very brief, only in a few minutes you can express. Prove the existence of the soul, the existence of God, the existence of the holy name. All these things. So, but I don't know if we have time. Okay, you said 5 minutes. This is not a phone, it's an iPhone. I don't have a phone. I have never had a phone in my entire life. And I will not change that. It's exactly like a phone, except for it never rings while I'm chanting. Or at any other time. Because Mahaprabhu said Kirtanya Sadari always chant. So it's great. Okay, where is it? There we are. Stopwatch. Go. One day, there was an atheist and a theist, and they met together to have a debate. The theist said, "Oh my dear brother, would you like to say something?" Atheist said, "Yes, of course." "Oh, but before you say something, here's a pen and here's a paper. I just want you to do one thing. Please write down a meaningful symbol which is not ambiguous. Just write down any symbol which is unambiguous." So you can do it. Do you have a pen and paper? Just take a pen and paper, just write down any symbol you like which is unambiguous. So then, that atheist, he was thinking and trying to write something, and then he said, "It's not possible," because he was a fairly bright atheist. It's not possible. So then the theist said, "Oh my dear brother, today we are fortunate. Today our life is successful, because now it has been established that you are a transcendental spirit soul, distinct from the material body. It has been established that God exists and that we are His servants, and that He should be approached through the chanting of His holy names. And this is the eternal religion of the soul." Then, that atheist, he gave a blank stare. He said, "How is that possible?" He said, "Listen carefully." Oh, I'm just going to pause for one moment. What symbol did you write down? What did you write down? A heart? Okay. That's a meaningful symbol, right? Isn't it meaningful?
Yes.
It's meaningful. It's meaningful to you because you use this emoji all the time. But someone from another culture, maybe they've tore out someone's heart, and it, you know, it looks as the left ventricle and the right ventricle, there's all these tubes coming off, and it doesn't look like that to me. Hmm? So unless you have a particular social conditioning where you're aware that this shape is a heart, then, well, it might be a kite, it might be a map of Africa or whatever. India looks like a heart actually, doesn't it? India is heart shaped, more or less. But it's not fixed what it will mean. It's a culturally conditioned. It's not objective. And even if it's given that you know, oh, this is a heart, then it's not unambiguous. Whose heart? Is it my heart? Is it your heart? Or does it mean love? Or does it mean the universal heart? Does it mean embodiment of heartness? You can't fix it. You can't fix it. It's impossible. What symbol did you write? A heart. Huh?
Stop sign.
A stop sign, like a circle with a line through it, or
No,
you
the hexagonal.
a hexagon. Okay? So if you go to another country, they have a different stop sign. In China, they probably have a completely different sign. So any symbol that you write, anything that you write, is not ambiguous and meaning-bearing, but rather the meaning is coming from us, from our desire. We desire that this means this, we communicate it to someone else, and then they understand, and then it's possible to communicate. But no symbol has unambiguous meaning. Nothing. If you draw a circle, what does it mean? Is it a zero? Is it the letter O? Is it the moon? Is it the pizza? What does it mean? Usually triangle is used for warning. But maybe it means camping. Camping, it's a tent. It's a wigwam. Maybe it's only one slice of pizza. Maybe it's a pyramid. Maybe it's press play. Maybe it's a warning. No triangles allowed here. No one can say. Does it represent the universal triangularity? Is it all triangles or just some triangles? Or big or small? Or just ones which are exactly that size? What is it? You see? So, because our mind does vikalpa. Vikalpa means we see something and then we project the meaning on it. And only something which is conscious and alive can do that. So, let me start watching again. Here we go. Come back to our little parable of the atheist and the theist having a conversation. Go. So, the atheist said, I cannot write an unambiguous meaning-bearing symbol. So then the theist said, now, because no material apparatus can host a meaning-bearing symbol, and because you, the conscious subject, are the substrate of unambiguous meaning in the form of icha, desire. See, what's the difference between matter and spirit? Spirit has awareness, jnana, icha and kriya. Consciousness, desire and agency. Yeah? But you are the substrate of unambiguous meaning. When you think, I want to stand up, it's unambiguous. It doesn't mean I want to lie down or I want to go to sleep or eat or whatever. Each one of your thoughts is directed by intention which is unambiguous. So, because matter, a material apparatus, cannot be the host of unambiguous meaning, and because you are the substrate of unambiguous meaning in the form of desire, intention, perception and conceptuality, therefore you are not a material apparatus. Okay? So the presentation only has 3 parts. Because matter cannot be cannot host, no material apparatus can host unambiguous meaning-bearing symbol. And because you are the substrate of unambiguous meaning-bearing symbols in the form of your own desires and thoughts, therefore you are not a material apparatus. or spiritual. Just digest it. I just stop the clock while you digest it. You understand? And there's no way out. This is discussed in just to give a little background to the history of this argument. In Vedic culture, and what we were discussing yesterday about spot, how the meaning of Om manifests the meaning of all words in the heart. So in India, there's been a long discussion for thousands of years. How do symbols in the form of words, because words are just sound symbols, right? Whether you write it down or whether you speak, it's the same. It's either a sonic symbol or a visual symbol, but a symbol is a symbol. How does a symbol convey meaning? So different philosophers, there's this Tattva school of Bhartrihari and the grammarians like Patanjali also. And on the other side, there are the Varnavadis, the Purvamimamsa school. Sorry, the Purvamimamsa school. Sorry, Uttamimamsa school of Jaimini Rishi. And their main scholarly representative is Kumara Bhatta. So they had argument for thousands of years over how does a word, a symbol, convey meaning. It's very difficult. Because if you speak Chinese, but if you give the lecture now, no one will understand you. Right? So how is it that symbols can convey meaning? It's when you go deeply into it, it's very complicated. It can be expressed in material terms. So, later in history, Greek philosophers also came up with this problem. German philosophers in the late 19th century, early 20th century, there was a German philosopher named Brentano. And he gave a name for this. It's called the symbol grounding problem. How does meaning become grounded in a symbol? And he discovered the same argument which is given in the Vedas, given by ancient Greeks also. The symbol grounding problem is that materially it cannot, and therefore human beings who generate meaning and understanding are not material beings. Because matter is incapable of hosting an unambiguous meaning-bearing symbol. And we do it all the time, so we're not material. It's called the symbol grounding problem. So, in my book, it's almost ready, it should come out this year, I mentioned that if you look in the Encyclopedia Britannica for the subject, the symbol grounding problem, it says that the argument of the German philosopher Brentano has never ever been defeated. That all the philosophers, from whether they're philosophers of epistemology, ontology, or linguistics, analytical philosophy, formal logic, no one, even up to today, has been able to give an answer to this. So first we have established, let's start the clock again.
Before you do, can I challenge?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I want to argue.
Go ahead.
So I'm
Knock yourself out. Good luck.
So I'm a bag of chemicals, and other bags of chemicals have taught me that this stop sign or this heart means that thing, and I just stored that information.
Yeah.
So I'm
Right.
material.
That's the argument of the Varnavadis. The Varnavadis, they say that we understand the meaning of a word because someone associated that sound with that object and we remembered it. Right? Whereas the Spotvadis say no, that when you utter sounds, there's this thing called spot, and it illuminates the meaning of the word. Sorry, when you utter a sound, it illuminates the spot, and then the spot makes a flash in your intelligence of what it means. So these are the two schools. They're both wrong, actually. Because the school that actually gives the answer is Vedanta. So, but just in reply to your question, the problem here is this. Okay, you're a bag of chemicals, right? So what happens is, this person says, this object is associated with this sound. So that sound touches your ear, right? And then is encoded in the form of a chemical signal, electrochemical signal. So now it's in the form of an electrochemical signal. And then it travels along the nervous system and comes to your brain. So this is just a formation of chemicals here, and your brain does another formation of chemicals. Now, how can this encoded message be turned into a sound? Unambiguously. Because, wait, you're saying, well, he showed me this and he showed me that, and I remember it from before, that now I've learned it. When I see it again, I hear that, I remember it from before. Right? Now, yes, I'm saying you can do that because you're a soul and you are yourself the substrate of unambiguous meaning, intention, conceptuality, and so on. But let's just go into your paradigm. Right? So you're just chemicals. Right? So when this electrochemical signal comes and meets some other chemicals, these chemicals, right, have never heard anything, never seen anything, they don't memorize anything from before. How do they make the first decoding of that code? How do they decode it? I'm not saying you saw something and the person gave a name to it, and then next time you see it you remember. I'm saying the first time, how did you even associate the meaning with that object?
How did the first human...
No. Even you. Let's say you're just born. Let's say you're born today with fully functioning intelligence. Right?
Yeah.
And you don't know any words or any language or something. Right? So this sound goes in your ear and it's just blip blip blip. How do you turn that blip 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 into the actual word?
I can't explain that one.
It cannot be decoded. Well, it can be encoded, but now it's in a symbolic form. And now this symbol can't be turned, it cannot be decoded into an experience. It's just like if she will write something in Chinese and give it to you, okay, translate it. You've just been born, right? And she writes something in Chinese and, no, I'll write it in English if you've just been born. You never learned A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Right? And I give it, how can, on the basis, if you're a chemical machine, you take that code and turn it into something meaningful?
Right, because I haven't learned the other words, so how can I turn that symbol you're showing into a meaning in my mind? If I'm a baby and you show me a stop sign, how can I understand that as a stop sign? I haven't learned, how can I learn the other things?
You have to know something
You
first.
have to know something to have a basis.
Yeah. But I'm not just saying that. Inside, if you reduce yourself to only chemicals, here's some chemicals and here's some other chemicals, where's the meaning? It's deaf.
Yeah.
Once something goes from desire or understanding into code, it becomes encoded. It cannot become decoded again mechanically. It's impossible. So that's why I reduce it down. Instead of going into the brain, I just say, look, show me in a model, write down on a piece of paper, make a model, how a symbol can have unambiguous meaning. Because if you can't demonstrate it on paper, then you won't be able to explain how it goes on in your mind. But what people do is say, the sound comes, it's turned into an electrochemical signal, the signal goes along to the brain, and then when it gets to the brain, wave a magic wand, and you understand it. Not understand, just hear. Just the uninterpreted experience. Because, let's face it, if you touch something, that's also a signal. If you smell something, that's also a signal. If you see something, that's also a signal. So all you get is exactly the same electrochemical signal coming into the chemical brain. How would you know the difference between a sound, a taste, a smell? They're all smell is unambiguously not a vision. A vision is unambiguously not a fragrance. A fragrance is unambiguously not a sound. But every one of them in the mental system is just the same thing. It is a firing neuron. or a not firing neuron. How do you make that into experience? So the foundation of the argument is this: if you come from the Vaishnava side, the quality of the soul is Gyan, Icha and Kriya. Distinguish it from matter. Awareness, the ability to perceive, that is. Icha, desire, intention, and the Kriya, agency, the power to initiate an activity. So these are the qualities of the soul. But these qualities, being unambiguous in nature, cannot be turned into a code. Because any code requires desire first for the code to be meaningful. You understand? Let's say we invent a code, Morse code. So the person who invented it, if he never told anyone what the dot means, then he couldn't actually communicate with anyone. So there's no meaning in material apparatus. There's only meaning in a person who has desire. You see? So, just to back up, to state it in very easy terms, there are 3 stages. And if you don't catch it, it's because your own mind is doing a vikalpa. It's projecting the soul's own qualities onto matter when those qualities are not there. Like even you said the information comes. This is just speculation. There's no such thing as material information. Do you know computer science? A little bit? Yeah. So, when scientists speak of information, they're not speaking about information that means something. You know, if you know computer science, what information actually means, super probability. The probability of something being probable. If you study information. Just like, for example, if I say a sentence, in this room there are 50 people. Or if I say, I could write the word 50, or I could put 50. So those 2 sentences, they have the same information. But if you use information, say from the point of view of maths or computer science, it's nothing to do with the meaning. It's how many letters are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the sentence. So because the word 50 is whatever, F-I-F-T-Y, 5 characters, but the letter 5 and O is only 2 characters, there's more information in that sentence than in the one with the numbers. Understand what I'm saying? From the mathematical or computer point of view, there's more information. There isn't. When we speak of information, we mean colloquially, we mean meaning. But when a scientist says information, it means how many bits are there. So then he can calculate, well, how many bits of information are there? And also then he can calculate, well, how many letters are there in the alphabet? So what's the probability of those letters appearing in the sentence? And then he can calculate, like, what was the probability of this sentence coming about, bearing in mind that each letter only has this particular probability of appearing in the sentence. Right? So it's mathematical, that information is mathematical probability. It's not actually information as we think of it. But in your mind you've mixed up these 2, and that's called vikalpa, a non-correlated thought construct. And therefore you think that the electronic signal carries the information of what the perception is and what you are experiencing. But it cannot, and does not. People are really confused today. They don't understand what is information from the colloquial sense, what it is from the mathematical sense, from the computing sense. What is order and chaos and entropy and all of these things. They're all completely mixed up, even in the minds of the scientists. Most of them. There are some scientists who have very clear thinking and they rebel against this. And they've written books like, whoa, this is not. So, just went off the subject a little bit. Anyway, it will all be in the book. If you're patient. So what are we discussing? We're discussing this topic that just 3 parts. A mature apparatus cannot host unambiguous meaning. As a conscious subjective being, you are the host of unambiguous meaning. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to understand what I'm saying to you right now. And therefore you are not a mature apparatus. So now we've proved that the soul is transcendental, not material. Now we're done. Let's get the stopwatch going again. Go. Let's keep going. Next point. So now you are not a material being, you're a spiritual being. So now my question to you is, are you a self-existent being or a dependent existent being? Have you generated your own existence, or was your existence generated by something else? It's the latter, yeah. You didn't generate your own existence. If you were this word in Sanskrit, Swata Siddha, the holy name is also Swata Siddha, it means self-existent. It's the cause of its own existence. If something exists, it can either have form or not have form. Right? Now, if the base level of reality is something that has no form, it's just a pure potential, then it would need something else to make that formless potential take form. So if you say that the base level of reality is formless, then there must be God to actualize that potential energy and make the forms, who is beyond all the forms that is made. So there must be God. But if you say the base level of reality is something that has a form, let's say, a fundamental particle, the very last thing that everything is made out of. Scientists don't know because they haven't gone deep enough to find the last thing. But there are only two choices. Either the last thing is formless, which means there must be a God, or the last thing is some kind of particle. Right? Form or formless, there's only two choices. Is there anything between? Either something has a form or it doesn't. So my dear atheistic friends, pick one. If you pick formlessness, then the very fact that forms exist means that there must be some being who is transcendental to actualize the forms into the world that we see. So then he'll pick, no, there's some kind of atomic particle, some quark or something, some Higgs boson particle. We're just trying to discover it now in CERN in Switzerland with our particle beam accelerator there. Yeah. So, okay, let's say they find the last particle. They won't, but there must be. If reality is not formless, then it must have a form, so there's a last particle. So this last particle must be indivisible. Right? Must be indivisible, because if it could be divided into lesser particles, then that would be the last particle. So the last particle must be indivisible. Now, things in this world, their forms are either intentional or accidental. That means if something's form is accidental, let's just say sand dunes. The wind blows, and it blows all the parts, and they come together and they make a shape in the sand. So we'd say that that shape of the sand is accidental, right? Because it's just incidental or adventitious to the combination of the parts that make it up, right? But if something has no parts, then its form cannot be accidental. Its form must be intentional. So when the form of something is a product of its intention, that means the reality, because remember, we're talking about the base level reality, which is the basis of everything else. If the last particle is indivisible, and thereby its form is intentional, and its form is a product of its intention, then whoever's form is a product of his own intention, and whose form is the basis of all other forms, that is synonymous with omnipotence. Right? If your form is what you want it to be, in other words, reality conforms to your desire, that's called omnipotence. So any way you look at it, the base level of reality, either if it's formless, there's God. If it's not formless, there's God. Right? So anything which is self-existent and indivisible is omnipotent. So we've just established that you're not material, and now I'm asking you, are you self-existent or dependent existent? Now the answer is this. We can look at both of them. If you say I'm self-existent, then I've just explained that would mean that you'd be omnipotent. So please, scientifically demonstrate your omnipotence. Perhaps you should just Just make, an apple grow on a cherry tree. Just a little bit. I'm not asking you to do something big. Just like manifest a blade of grass or a planet. Can you do it? No, you're not omnipotent. So because you're not omnipotent, therefore you are dependent existent. Right? So if you're dependent existence cannot exist without independent existence. Because if everything was dependent, then there would be no way that it existed.
Right.
So the very fact that existence is here, it's right in front of us right now, but all these things are dependent existence. Gradually, one day our body will be gone, one day this house will be gone, right? One day this planet will be gone, the sun will burn out one day, right? Everything. But dependent existence can't exist without being dependent on something, so there must be independent existence, which is indivisible and which is omnipotent. So we've established that there must be an indivisible, self-existent simplex. But if you examine the nature of that which is an indivisible, self-existent simplex, then that's totally indistinguishable from the notion of God. Because it's eternal, because it has no parts to fall apart. It's omnipotent, because the whole of reality is based on it. And it's conscious, because its form is intentional, not accidental. So if there's something that's eternal, conscious and omnipotent, who's that? Well, that's God. Okay? Now, if God is indivisible, then all of his properties can't be separated from him. So his name can't be separated from him. So even if you conceive of his name being separate from him, it never is. And just as God is omnipotent, because his name is inseparable from him, his name is omnipotent. So now, we've gone from the first thing, we've proven just in the actual discussion without all the explanation was, how far are we coming? Oh, it was 9 minutes. But you can explain it literally in 5 minutes, but people don't get it because they have vikalpa, because their intelligence is not functioning. It's called vikalpa. When your mind invents something that isn't true, but you don't notice it. Yeah? The invention of something which isn't true is called vikalpa. And when you don't notice it, it's called pramada. Pramada means the inability to understand that you've made a mistake due to a lack of concentration. That's called pramada. So, those are defects of the condition. So, brahm, pramada, vipralipsa, karnapata. So the explanation you can literally do in 5 minutes. But the person can't understand due to their pramada, inattentiveness, and vikalpa. But we've just shown systematically, from the initial argument, just write down an unambiguous meaning-bearing symbol, and opening up from that you are a soul, that you are transcendent, that you are the seat of jnana, icha and kriya, consciousness, the desire and agency, that you're non-material, that you're different from the physical apparatus of the body, that you are dependent existence, so there must be a self-existence, so there must be a God, and that God, being indivisible and self-existent, cannot be different from his name, and therefore his name is all-powerful. You may not be able to realize God due to the contamination of consciousness, but because God's not different from will prove that it's correct. Anything that you say will prove it's correct. So I haven't gone into details how to do that, but you'll see in the book. And I want to give some courses on this. It's called Achyuta Siddhanta, on English, the inerrant dialectic. The discussion that leads to the truth without any error. And all of you who are educated and inclined towards philosophy, I want you to be trained to become fully fluent in this dialectic. And then go everywhere. You can do online, you can do in person, in schools, in colleges, in courtrooms, and everywhere, all over the world. And completely eradicate materialism and atheism from the whole world. And show the path. It is not that materialists are logical. They are not logical. They are illogical. Their logic is not functioning. Because as soon as the consciousness is turned away from God, then it becomes unsteady. And when the consciousness becomes unsteady, it produces vikalpa and pramad, inattentiveness and non-correlated thought constructs. And they're lost in their own thought constructs. So we can show, this is the positive method of saying what is true. And also in the book, we give the negative method, that is identifying 8 levels of the non-correlated thought construct. So you can help a person get out. They're buried under 8 levels of non-correlated thought constructs, vikalpa. And so this book shows one by one each one of the psychological mistakes by which a person creates a philosophy that justifies or in their mind dispenses with the absolute necessity for God. God is a necessary being, He is unavoidable. But there are some layers of vikalpa that gives the appearance that it's plausible that we can dispense with the necessity for God. But it isn't. It isn't. It's just cognitive failure. So if an honest person, when their cognitive failures are pointed out, then naturally they'll accept the existence of God and the path of devotion. Because a dependent being dependent on the independent existence, is naturally a servant. Because a being who depends on another is a servant. That's his master. So, there are 12 points. It goes all the way up to proving Narayan, and then up to proving Krishna, and proving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's the last point. But only today you wanted to know about the holy name, so we stopped there. Okay, we can take 1 or 2 more questions, then we have to have a break. Yes, who has a question? Raise your hand.
I'm going to wait because
You'll wait,
I
okay,
hear a
then
lot
I'll
of
ask you.
stomachs growling.
Srila Gurudev,
Sorry?
I hear a lot of stomachs growling.
Yeah, yes.
Srila Gurudev,
Yes. Another one.
thank you. Thank you, Srila Gurudev. I feel like related to what you've just covered is the somewhat modern idea stated by Rudolf Steiner, who he predicted that at some point that there would be some kind of gene therapy or something that could be injected that would effectively alter the composition of the form of the human such that they would be incapable of accessing spirituality. And we also know that lobotomies and things like this alter...
The four regulative principles do that. If you take intoxication, you eat meat, and if you're unchaste, and so on, if you break 4 regulative principles, that makes you incapable of spirituality.
Yes.
These are just more extreme versions of the same thing.
So I wonder...
You can give yourself a lobotomy with coffee.
Chai.
Just drink coffee. And it will make your mind race so much that you're just creating things all the time which are not true.
So I wonder, because we're talking about intentionality, and because there is such a thing as transhumanism that's developing, where people want to augment their reality, augment their features, their form, which means the meaning essentially and what they're capable of, essentially to try to become more powerful, i.e. Even though they're not really. What is it about form, or how can we address the role that form plays, because the brain does play some form, some role in intelligence and that kind of thing? I mean, that's been observed. So how do we address that aspect?
The thing is that, yes, materialists think that all consciousness, everything is a byproduct of the structures of the brain. This is their idea. And the argument, for example, one of the main philosophers of mind is John Searle. He's like the main philosopher in the world today in the philosophy of mind. So he said that we know that consciousness is a product of the brain because there's no instance of consciousness occurring outside of a brain system. That's his argument. Right? So, but what kind of argument is this? This is not even a sophomoric level of argumentation. Because in philosophy there's a difference between sufficient causes and sufficient cause, and the other type is called necessary. Sufficient and necessary causes. So for example, if a car is moving down the road, a necessary cause is for the car to have wheels. If it doesn't have wheels, it's not going to go down the road. So to have wheels is a necessary cause, but is it a sufficient cause? Just because a car has wheels doesn't mean it's going to go down. You need a driver inside to drive it. So the argument of the number one philosopher of mind from the materialistic point of view in the West today, John Searle, is just completely childish because it doesn't discriminate between necessary and sufficient causes. The brain is a necessary cause, but not a sufficient cause for consciousness. Because a soul is, in this world, souls are given bodies. And bodies that can manifest that they are consciousness and speak to others and so on, and confirm, yes, I am conscious, right? Have brains. So a brain is a necessary cause, but it's not a sufficient cause. And if you say that it's a sufficient cause, then you have to demonstrate how just some arrangement of chemical in the brain becomes the substrate of unambiguous meaning. You can't do it. It's impossible. Just show me how you can do it. If you can't explain how the brain is the substrate of unambiguous meaning, and you cannot, ever. No one's ever been able to do it. And so what happens is they give an explanation up to a point, and when they get to a certain point and everyone's paying attention, they feel this is really clever and really intellectual, then at the end of the explanation they just do some hand waving. Abracadabra, and then it happens. But there's actually no explanation. It's just cheating. And every university in the world is cheating. They're all cheating. They should be exposed. The lies must be exposed. And the students are sitting there, they're hungover from the party the previous night, they woke themselves up with coffee, so they can't concentrate on very fine philosophy, and they just sit and nod their head, yes, it must be true because I'm paying so much for this. I don't want it not to be true because I'm going into debt like $100,000 to learn this thing. You know? So it's when a person is malinvested in something, it's very difficult for them to admit that it's completely worthless. So there are so many, that's why when you first asked the question, I said there are different directions. There's logos, I've explained logically, but there's also pathos, there's the emotional reason why they can't accept. And there may be ethical reasons like, well, God is like a fascist dictator, why do we all have to serve him? Right? So they give ethical arguments why we shouldn't serve God. So Prahlad Maharaj has addressed that very argument also in Srimad Bhagavatam, but we've run out of time now, we'll discuss it next time. Yeah? So how to answer, so you have to look at the person and see where they are and what they need, and then, this morning I've applied according to Logos. But we can also present things according to pathos, ethos and kairos as well in another class. Gaur Premanande. So little holy name, chanting, kirtan, and then there will be very soon prasadam, and everyone please come at 5 o'clock for bhajans, and shortly afterwards I'll be there. I want to sing bhajans with you also in the evening. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Vrindai tulasi devai priya kesavascha Krishna bhakti padi devi satyatam Vanjakalpatarubhascha kripa sindhuvevacha Paditanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. This argument capitalizes on the phenomena of meaning. Matter does not host meaning. Meaning is called artha. Intention and meaning are the same thing. The meaning of life is God's intention for it. So meaning and intention are the same thing. So we have to attune our intentions to God's intention, then we understand the meaning of everything. So in the Bhagavatam, it is said, the definition of Maya, Ritertam Yat Pratiyeta, when you look at something and you don't see its meaning, that's called Maya. So meaning is spiritual. It is the expression of intention. And intention is only found in the substrate of a person. So the meaning, there's only one, the meaning of everything is Krishna. But when we're in Maya, there's vikalpa. Kalpa means imaginary and V means separated. We've separated. The one sound, Shabda Brahma, has been shattered into millions of meanings. And when we're absorbing all those meanings, that's called prajalpa, nonsense talk. And it obstructs bhakti. So when our consciousness becomes fixed on Krishna and integrated again, then we see that meaning is indivisible. And therefore, though there are many words, they all mean Krishna. And this is what Mahaprabhu was trying to teach his students when he got back from Gaya. So when the Shabda Brahma pierces the ear, automatically the meaning of all words becomes visible, becomes perceived, and the meaning of all things also. And that's why they said, Anabriti Shabdat, Anabriti Shabdat. It's the last sutra, Vedanta Sutra. And by sound you are delivered to the divine realm. You never come back. Anabriti means not coming back, Shabdat. And due to the sound. Anabriti Shabdat, Anabriti, it's twice. Twice, why? Because when you're in ecstasy, you say something, you never say it once. Jai Ho! Anabriti Shabdat, Anabriti Shabdat. Yad Gatpana Nivatante Taddama. Those who go to Golok Vrindavan, they never come back, they never come back. And it's facilitated by Shabda. Anabriti Shabdat, Anabriti Shabdat. This is the last sutra Vedanta.
Jai Hare Krishna.
Shrudev ki
Jai. Prabhupada Prem Prayojan Prabhu ki Jai.
Oh, does everyone have this book? Yes. Very important. Please study it carefully. I'll talk about it also maybe tomorrow. If you don't have this book, then just give your name to Vishaka and she'll send you PDF. Because it's sold out. You want to reprint what wasn't printed in time. Yes, that's the last one.